Bambiz presents Elder Law Growth, the podcast that helps elder law and estate planning attorneys attract clients without wasting time or money. I'm your host, Jim Blake. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Elder Law Growth podcast presented by Bambiz, the team that helps elder law and estate planning attorneys grow their firms, fill their workshops, and connect with their communities. Learn more at bambiz.net. Today's guest is Bonnie Faucett, former estate planning attorney, Army wife, mom, and the CEO and founder of Legacy System, a proven program helping attorneys reclaim their time, reduce chaos, and increase profits. If you're tired of running yourself into the ground in your practice, this episode is going to show you what's possible. Bonnie, we're excited to have you. Can you give us a quick look at your journey from running your own estate planning firm to launching Legacy System and what pushed you to make that transition?
Yes, absolutely, Jim. And thank you for having me. So my journey started in 2011 when I became pregnant with my first baby, and I had to figure out how can I move away from litigation, courtroom, the stress with opposing counsel and all that. And so estate planning, I'd always had my eye on. So I started an estate planning firm right before she was born. And that's here in Denver, Colorado. I added a partner, associates, built a team. We had a big office downtown. And I built that over 4 years. Now, what also happened over 4 years was I ended up having 4 children during that time, which is a little insane. And the way the math works there is I had twins in the middle. So I had a daughter, 2 twin boys, and then another daughter. And when the youngest was born, and I did have the opportunity to be at home, maternity leave and all that with my youngest because of what I had built in my firm there, I took a step back, mentally just to think, how can I do this? How can I be present as a mom and also be in my firm as much as my firm needed me? And what I concluded was that really I was moving into a phase of my life where I needed to help attorneys build the systems in the same way that I built my firm up to that point in order to grow and scale it like I did. So I decided to move away from the rigidity of client meetings and the commute downtown into helping attorneys build the estate planning firm of their own dreams in terms of how they wanted to serve their community. So I launched various different concepts and programs over the years, starting in 2017. And finally, after a few different things came together, we have a software that I've developed to solve the client collaboration challenge when it comes to technology as estate planning attorneys, a software that I've developed separately. I developed an outsourced drafting service. And then as I was helping attorneys through both of those, they would ask me, well, how did you do this? And what was your checklist there? So I developed a knowledge base as comprehensive as I could about everything that I know. And those 3 things, the software, the drafting, and the knowledge base, have now become the 3 pillars of my signature program, Legacy Membership. So now that's all under the umbrella of Legacy System. And we have hundreds of attorneys in estate planning that we're working with. And as a result, I'm also, indirectly reaching thousands, tens of thousands of families through those attorneys who do have systems in place to serve those clients at the highest level.
Oh, that's awesome. And doing that with the growing family, how was that?
Oh, that was very hard. It just is what it is. If you're a parent listening, just yesterday, I'm driving to do school pickup, at 2:30 in the afternoon, which would have been just middle of the afternoon back in the day before I had kiddos. It's certainly a challenge. It's a balance for sure, which is why you have to have systems. I mean, that's what I learned is the only way that you can be present in the various roles that you have in your life, personally and professionally, is to have systems that you're running with your business so that you can walk away for a moment for school pickup or a soccer game or go on vacation without taking a pay cut, which is not possible if you're just a solo attorney doing everything yourself. So it's certainly a balance and priorities. I actually have a separate program altogether designed for entrepreneur parents called the Bonnie Blueprint, where I explain here are all the ways that I do this. And that's really just for any entrepreneur parent out there, not just estate planning attorneys. But you have to be intentional. You don't have that life by design to be the mom, the wife, the spouse, the daughter, the sister, the aunt, the business owner, the attorney that you want to be if you don't do it intentionally.
No, that's what I always say too. I'm like, this stuff doesn't happen by accident. This isn't like,
right.
You have to have a plan. So that's great to hear.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to talk about was kind of like why attorneys stay stuck. So like, why do you find that like when people are coming to you, like are so many estate planning and elder law attorneys, like, they're overwhelmed? Why do you think that is?
So what I have found is estate planning attorneys tend to be overwhelmed because for a couple of different reasons. One is just kind of an unwillingness to let go in the sense of thinking I can do it better than anybody else. I think that afflicts a lot of attorneys, honestly, the idea I can do it better than anyone else. One of my mentors, Dan Martell, states it perfectly. 80% done is 100% awesome. So just because you can do it better than anyone else doesn't mean you shouldn't delegate it, even if for whatever reason they don't do it exactly the same way that you do. If it gets done, be outcome oriented, and then you can actually get things off your plate. And once you can do that, you can start working on the business, above the business, the systems, the SOPs, and the checklists. So that way you can walk away and know that thing will still get done timely. Another big piece of it is kind of resistance to technology. So what I found is lawyers are we're kind of just okay as a group, as an industry, with really subpar technology, things that look really dated, act really dated when it comes to software. We're still stuck in Word or Excel in terms of a lot of different things that we do. And there are such faster, better, more automated ways and more reliable ways you can do things, especially attorney-client collaboration and estate planning, which is what my software solves. There are much better ways technology-wise that you can do things. So you, as the attorney, you have to decide, I'm not going to just go with the masses of just kind of dealing with or putting up with subpar software. Go into different places where you can find this software solves this problem in this really unique, amazing way, and then dial it in. And then you can keep kind of build your own tech stack where you're picking out the best of what you need specifically to serve your clients.
And I think a lot of attorneys don't even know the softwares that they should be using. Like they have no idea.
Right.
Like they don't even know what they don't know, right? And I
Yeah.
think it's also more than just lawyers too. Like handing off something and getting it 80% done bothers them because they know that that's just tough. And I always like to joke around, like if I had two people doing things 80% as good as me, then that's a lot better than me in the long run, right?
Oh, yeah.
But what is something that you would kind of like push back a little bit for on those that are like, I don't know, fighting, getting something done a little less than what they think that they could do if they just did it themselves?
Well, here's how I think really drives the point home, how I like to share it is, let's say that you want to grow, and everyone should have the goal to grow. If you're not growing, you're shrinking. I don't think there's really anywhere where it's just static. So if you're looking to grow, how in the world are you going to double your new clients without simply doubling your working hours? Like, I just don't see how it's possible. So you may have this big vision of doubling or tripling your new clients, but if you don't have on the other side of the coin a plan to ensure that you are delegating, you are outsourcing, you are finding qualified, highly competent team members to help you, you're just taking more time out of your own schedule away from your family and your personal care and your children to serve these clients, and that will lead to burnout. So it's this, it's this trajectory that you're on where if you don't decide, I need to stop and look at my systems if I'm also going to plan to grow here, where you're going to end up with burnout or discontent in your practice. And you certainly don't want that. That's not a good way to show up in any relationship, especially with paying clients. So that's how I like to look at it. Double your new clients. How are you going to do it without doubling your working hours? The answer is systems.
So if you're thinking like, if I'm an attorney, I'm thinking, okay, great, systems, let's go ahead and get this thing going.
Yeah.
What is step one? Like this is a little overwhelming to me, right? Like there's so many systems, I don't even know where to start. So where would you recommend me starting?
Well, there's two ways you could look at it. You could decide, and I wrote a book on this. So we have, I have a recent released Amazon international best-selling book, The Ultimate Legacy, which is the exact system for estate planning attorneys to take home more profit, save precious time, and bring order out of the chaos. To answer exactly this question, there's one of two ways you could do it, kind of depending on your disposition and the way that you kind of learn and implement, as an adult learner. One is you could literally go in chronological order, start to finish. So I have a complete 8-phase estate planning system: foundations, intake, design, drafting, signing, wrap up, funding, and updates. And it literally covers the entire estate planning journey for you and your clients. So you could do it methodically in a linear pattern like that. Just read my book, start to finish. Another way you could do it, though, and I just put together for my members a first 100 days guide for them, and I had to tackle this question. If they don't have time to just stop everything and do it start to finish, then what I recommend you do is, and I have some questions like an assessment in my first 100-day guide, find the single most painful area of your practice right now. There's probably many areas that have some level of pain or expense, higher expense than necessary related to them. But if you had to force yourself to choose just one of those 8 phases that is the most painful or most expensive, start there. solve that one, only hyper focus on that one. That's another great aspect of my book. You could literally run straight or go straight to that chapter and not have had read what's leading up to it in order to implement what's in that chapter, all the takeaways. So start with the most painful one, solve that, then do some marketing to get new clients. Now solve what has emerged as your second and now first most painful one. And that way you can start chipping away at the things that are going to have the biggest impact for you by implementing those immediately. And then ultimately you'll look up in about a year's time ultimately and be like, wow, I got through all of it. And now you can actually start over again because now you've got a year's experience. Reread a chapter you read a year ago. I do that all the time with things that I read or listen to. I'll listen or read it again and realize like, gosh, I didn't even hear that last time, but I do now because of my experience that I'm bringing to the listening or reading now at this present moment.
Yeah, you're now ready to experience whatever that next step was after reading
Yes.
the book. Yeah, I like to reread books years later, and it definitely
Yeah.
sort of that. What do you see? Like, they say pick the one thing that obviously is bothering them the most. Like you talk to obviously a lot of firms. What is probably the thing that you keep hearing over and over again is that one thing?
It's kind of under the umbrella of the client information gathering, the back and forth management of data with them, and the choices of their design plan. That all kind of falls under a little bit of intake and a little bit of design, kind of the meeting point of the intake phase and the design phase. It's all about the client collaboration regarding their data. That is because we always ask for any of our freebies that you might find on our website. What's your single biggest challenge right now? And overwhelmingly, it's things about intake data, getting information back from the clients, that kind of thing. And so that's the biggest challenge. And that's actually what my software, the legacy app software, is designed to solve. I was really tired of all the back and forth of multiple Word documents, multiple versions, Excel files, an intake form, PDF, handwritten notes, things on Post-it notes, emails back and forth, attachments to emails, even voicemails from clients or phone calls from clients or with clients as ways of essentially gathering data. That sounds like a nightmare to me. If you're listening and that's what you're currently doing, you can probably identify with that. Like data is everywhere. You have no one single master source. And drafting software doesn't count as a master source of data. Drafting software is kind of back-end software to facilitate the drafting. That's not where you say that is the master place of all my client information, files, data, design choices, etc. That's what my legacy app software is designed to solve. And it really, one of our kind of key areas is how can we dial in the client data gathering and approval process. And so what I teach in the book, if you're looking for software to solve the concepts I teach in the book, that's where legacy app comes into play perfectly.
So it sounds like there's a couple different software. Like, so what are the different? You have different softwares for different things. Is that what it is, or like because you have like obviously that's like most likely like an intake type of a software.
Yeah, it's intake, but really beyond that, the complete attorney-client collaboration in their journey, start to finish, all the way through funding of their estate plan. So we have a really robust and visual funding tracker connecting their assets they identified in intake to the proper funding and what still needs to be done. And then it also supports the client relationship over time because we know they're going to sell their home or open a new bank account or start a business or get new life insurance. And so continually keeping those assets funded is hugely important for an estate planning attorney. But the typical kind of software stack, the one that I would use if I were still practicing full time, is the legacy app software to facilitate the attorney-client collaboration. I would use Lawmatics or an automation software for sure for online scheduling, marketing, email, automations, all invoicing, payments, all of that. And then a drafting software like Wealth Counsel or Interactive Legal. Like to me, those three, that trio. So automation, the legacy app software for client collaboration, and drafting software, that is what you need as an estate planning attorney. Then, of course, you need other things that just any small business owner needs. You need QuickBooks and you need, Canva, that type of stuff. But to me, there's like a trio where if you have those three dialed in, then you're running a beautiful, elegant system in your firm.
No, that sounds pretty cool. So what mistakes do you typically see when somebody is trying to start this systematizing and they're failing because of something? What's a mistake people make a lot?
So one mistake I see, and I will share that even I struggle with this, even to this day in building out systems to run my own company, is you start to outsource. And then it's like this weird experience whenever you bring on a team member or outsource. You go through what another one of my mentors, Tim Francis, calls the trough of sorrow. It sounds so terrible. The trough of sorrow, which is once you decide that you need to bring on help and you're willing to do so, you actually slow down a bit. You have to slow down and teach them, especially if you have nothing yet created to that they can follow, any sort of training they can consume, 24/7 through recordings or SOPs or manuals that you might have written up, that kind of thing. So you go through this period where you actually feel like you're slowing down, and you will, if you're just focused on the short term, you will give up. You'll throw in the towel. You'll say, never mind, I don't have time to train you. And you're back to where you started. So you have to keep the eye on the long game. So that tends to be the mistake I see is as you're going through kind of that short-term slowdown for the long-term immense gain you get as you build your team is to just throw in the towel, because the more that you're on that hamster wheel where it's like, let me try to outsource and then no, never mind. Let me try to outsource, no, never mind. Then again, you're back to where it's like you never can double your new clients or triple because you don't have the working hours to even show up, the human hours to even show up and serve those new clients. So you have to get through what feels like a difficult time, but there is a long-term gain on the other side of it.
I was gonna say, like, where do you typically see like the breakthrough come in? Because I mean, like, it's totally different, but like on our side, we do like the marketing, and so like that's the same type of almost thing where you start getting somebody results, right? And then they're overwhelmed, and then they're almost like, it was easier for me to not have this new influx of leads and clients potentially coming in. So let me just
Yeah.
go back to where I was. But there's typically like a breakthrough where they do create a system or something like that, and then they can see like, okay, this actually makes life a lot better. So where is that point for you?
Well, so what I would say is for anyone looking to up level their marketing with Bambiz or through any other efforts where you're saying I really want to bring in a lot of new clients right now, you have to take it seriously enough where you realize like, okay, if that is successful, which who doesn't want their marketing efforts and expense to be successful? If that is successful, are you going to be able to serve them? So that has to be an honest answer. And so that's where I see the breakthrough is when somebody decides, an attorney decides, I'm going to invest in marketing advice or an agency or guidance or ads and spend, et cetera. They have to be willing at the same time to say, okay, whatever time I'm setting aside to work with a third party who's going to help me do this, be willing to set aside the equivalent amount of time to look on the back end, to look at your systems. Because I've been down that road before. We invested a lot in every door direct mail and in various, print type catalogs, at the ballet in Denver and in the paper and on, the sports radio here in Denver. We did a lot of that. And in some of those cases, we weren't ready for the influx, which is sad because it's like I was willing to spend that money and we got the clients, but now I'm buried serving them. And then I'm going to look up in 2 months and there's nobody in the pipeline, and then you backtrack. And so the idea is that you have to be willing to address both, I think, at the same time in order for either one of them to be successful.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. And yeah, I mean, that's it goes with everything. It's just like, okay, great, I'm going to do this thing. But now that thing is causing a new problem that I didn't know I was going to
Yeah.
have, right?
Yeah.
And so then how do I solve the new problem? And then you obviously solve for that problem, and then you create a new problem, and your problems keep getting better and better. But yeah.
Yeah, like bigger, better, different, but I mean, that's another way to look at it, though, that goes back to, my suggestion on how you might solve this is just do look at your most painful area first and work on solving that. Now, when it comes to marketing, that's where it's a little challenging because I do think you have to address a painful part on the back end and marketing at the same time for the marketing to work for the long haul, for you to not be overwhelmed. But yeah, start with the most painful area for sure.
No, for sure. After they build this stuff out, what like the journey, what
Uh-huh.
does life look like after systematizing?
Oh, so after systematizing, it is beautiful and enjoyable because you can actually, like I mentioned, like yesterday, I am, going to pick up my kids from school at 2:30, which I actually have been doing for the past 2 weeks. Normally, my husband helps with that, but my husband's in the Army and he's on orders right now out of town. And so that doesn't become a big deal for our family. If he needs to be out on a mission, I can step in, even though I'm the business owner, and be with my kids at times of the day when I don't normally because my business has systems and teams and people running it. So I can step away and be with my family in the way that they need. So what you end up having are a few different things. You can take a vacation without a pay cut. You can have reliable time in with your family. Reliable meaning you can reliably count on not having to put out a fire while you're sitting and watching your son play baseball. So you're able to actually step away knowing the business keeps running its day-to-day operations because you have elevated yourself above the day-to-day, above being in the business, buried by the fires. You're working on the business most of your time. You're working on it versus in it. And so you can actually walk away and know things are still going to get done. Payroll is still going to go through just fine. Clients are still going to be coming in the door and engaging. You don't have, payments that you're trying to track down from clients that are past due. So you really enter into this kind of new level of truly a business owner, not just a freelancer of your time billing hourly as an attorney.
Yeah, and I guess I'd love for you to like kind of dig into like who's the one running these systems at the end of the day? Is the deal, the attorneys might be listening to this or, somebody else at the firm, but like
Mm.
the attorney, I mean, in my opinion, right? They should be the one running these systems. I
Oh,
would
no, they should not. Right, right.
so I
No.
know like on our end, like we have some attorneys that are trying to run their own marketing, right? And it's like that's not where your
Yeah.
time should be best spent. So I'm assuming the same as with this. They're like, okay, cool, I made all these systems, but now they're trying to like learn and build out these systems. But
Yeah.
go into, I don't want to speak on behalf of you, but like who should be running these systems? What type of a person should be in control of all of this at the
Well,
firm?
so you could give them any title, really. I've heard lots of different titles, but to me, it's really someone running the operations. The operation is the day to day. So I'll give you an example. In Legacy System, I mentioned earlier, drafting is one of the three pillars of membership. We have an outsourced drafting service because I'm a firm believer that 80 to 90% of the time spent drafting need not be done by an attorney. It can be done by a qualified, highly competent non-attorney who knows what they're doing. Well, when I launched Legacy Drafting, I drafted probably like 85 estate plans for attorneys in the first 6 months. And I couldn't keep doing that, obviously, but I did it to learn like what is a system I can build around this so I can teach someone else. Then I found someone else. Her name's Amelia. She's still on my team, by the way. She's amazing. She's now our director of drafting. I literally don't touch our drafting service anymore at all unless it's related to some sort of major update to a system or process. So you need someone who really is willing to take on kind of the operational day to day off your plate. Because again, as a business owner and the attorney, that's really not your job. Are you your own director of operations? If you are, you're highly paid, or maybe not highly paid because you can't even bring in, the clients because you don't have the time. So you absolutely need someone else running it. But systems run the business. People run the systems. Because some people will come in with this kind of pie in the sky view of like, well, if I just set things up on automation, it runs itself. And that's not true. That is absolutely not true. So that's a fantasy land. You do need to set up your systems and monitor your systems and up-level your systems over time. People have to be involved in that. The systems though run the business to make sure things happen timely. And are you showing up in your very best way for your clients every single time on time, no matter what you've got going on with your family or otherwise. So people run the systems run the business.
Very cool. Well, what would be one piece of advice you would give to an attorney who's ready to stop hustling and start thriving?
So the one piece of advice I would give attorneys ready to stop hustling and start thriving is simply decide that the hourly rat race, the hourly hamster wheel that you have been experiencing, and be honest with yourself that you have, is not your future. As soon as you decide that that is not the path you want to continue, what got you here won't get you there. So it's all mental. It's all right here. As soon as you decide what got me here won't get me there, something needs to be different, then now all of a sudden you will see all these opportunities in the world, whether it's books or programs or podcasts that speak to how can you change things so that you get there. You get to be the business owner enjoying this wonderful business you've created, not buried by the fires.
No, very cool. Well, Bonnie, I appreciate you joining us for this episode of the Elder Law Growth Podcast. If listeners want to learn more about you and the Legacy System, where can they do that?
LegacySystem.com. It has everything you need. We have a lot of freebies. We have a free training. So go there, check out anything that might speak to what you're struggling with right now, and we'll send it right over to you via email immediately. So lots of info on LegacySystem.com.
Awesome. Anything else you wanted to share?
That it was lovely to be here, Jim. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Hey, no worries. Thank you for being a guest today. That's a wrap on today's episode of the Elder Law Growth Podcast, brought to you by Bambiz. Want marketing that actually works? Visit bambiz.net. Huge thanks to Bonnie Faucett for sharing her story. If you're looking to build a business that gives you more time, more freedom, and more profit, check out legacysystem.com. If this episode helped you, follow the show and leave us a review. It really helps others find it as well. Until next time, keep growing, keep serving, and keep building the life and firm you deserve. Thank you so much.
That's a wrap on another episode of the Elder Law Growth Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things marketing for elder law and estate planning law firms. Here you can find all of the tools and skills you need to market your own practice without wasting your time. If you like this podcast, please leave us a review wherever you're listening. And if you're ready to take the pressure off and let our team handle your marketing, visit bambiz.net and book a free call with us today.